The engines were seconds from roaring to life when the little boy stumbled into the middle of the dusty parking lot. Arms waving, chest heaving, eyes wide with terror that didn't belong on a child's face. Wait! Don't start your bikes. Six Hell's Angels froze mid-motion. Boots paused on pedals. Leather gloves hovered over throttles. Helmets turned toward him in slow, confused unison. The kid couldn't have been more than 8. Thin, dusty, shoelaces undone, face red from running, breath sharp and broken. But his eyes, God, those eyes. They held something no child should ever have to carry. Fear. Real fear. The kind that makes grown men straighten their backs. The leader, Bear, a broad-shouldered man with a thick beard and a voice like gravel, stepped forward. Kid, he said slowly, you don't run up on bikes like that. You could get hurt. The boy shook his head violently. No. And no, you guys can't leave yet. Bear exchanged glances with the others. This wasn't a kid asking for autographs. Or candy. Or to sit on a bike. Something was wrong. Deeply wrong. Bear crouched so he could meet the boy's trembling eyes. What's your name, little man? Eli, he whispered. His voice cracked. And you gotta help me. One of the bikers sighed. We aren't exactly babysitters. But Bear silenced him with one raised hand. What's going on, Eli? The boy looked back over his shoulder, toward the tree line behind the parking lot, toward the cracked old trail that led into the woods. His breath hitched. Please, he whispered. You can't start your bikes, because if you do, he'll hear you. Bear's expression darkened. Who? Eli swallowed, so hard his whole body trembled. The man, he whispered. The man in the woods. A ripple of cold cut through the warm afternoon. Another biker stepped forward. What man? Eli's lip quivered. The man who took my mom. Every biker went still. No one smirked. No one dismissed him. Not anymore. Bear's voice turned quiet. Dangerous quiet. Start from the beginning, kid. Eli blinked fast, trying to hold back tears. And my mom and I were walking home from the gas station. She went down the hill to pick up the blanket I dropped, and someone grabbed her. He wiped his dirty face with the sleeve of his shirt. I ran up the hill to get help. I thought if I yelled, someone would come. His voice cracked like breaking glass. But no one was there. No cars. No phones. Nothing. The smallest biker, Tank, a giant of a man with tattoos covering every inch of his arms, leaned in. Kid, how long ago was this? Eli swallowed. Maybe 10 minutes. Bear looked at his brothers. 10 minutes. That meant whoever took her. They were close. Bear's voice dropped low. Why us? Eli's eyes flooded. Because you're the only people here. And you have bikes, and you look strong, and... His voice broke. And grown-ups listen when you talk. Silence. Heavy. Painful. Eli grabbed Bear's vest with both hands. Please, he begged. He dragged her down the trail. I saw where he went. But if you start your bikes, he'll know I told. And he'll. His voice collapsed completely. Bear put a massive hand on his small shoulder. Eli, he said quietly, what exactly did you see? Eli's face paled. He pointed at the woods with a shaking finger. I saw him dragging her by her hair. Every biker stiffened. Eli whispered the words that froze their blood. And he had a knife. The wind shifted. The woods seemed to hold their breath. Bear rose slowly to his full height. Towering, calm, terrifying in his stillness. He turned to his men. No engines, he said. We go on foot. Every biker nodded. Not one argued. Not one hesitated. Bear knelt again, eye level with the terrified boy. You did the right thing, he said, voice steady. But you gotta tell me one last thing. He pointed at the trail. Is he still down there? Eli wiped his eyes and nodded. He didn't see me run. Bear's jaw tightened. Good, he growled. Then we've got the drop on him. Eli's breath shook. You'll help her? You'll get her back? Bear lifted his hand. A hand so big it could break a man. And gently placed it over the little boy's shaking fist. Kid, he said, we're gonna do a whole lot more than that. The rest of the Hell's Angels stepped beside him, forming a wall of leather and steel and vengeance. Bear's eyes burned with a promise. We're bringing your mama home. Eli's tears fell hard. But for the first time since the woods swallowed his mother, he wasn't afraid. Not anymore. Because now the wrong people had gotten involved. And it was about to become the kidnapper's worst mistake. Eli led them to the edge of the woods, his small hand gripping Bear's vest so tightly his knuckles turned white. The bikers fanned out behind him, boots crunching over dry leaves. Every one of them silent. every one of them scanning the shadows. But Bear watched Eli more than the trail. The boy kept holding his breath in broken little pieces, like he was afraid the trees could hear him. Bear crouched beside him. Eli, he whispered, you stay behind us. No matter what. Eli nodded, lip trembling, but he didn't cry. He'd already cried himself empty. The group moved into the woods. The sunlight dimmed fast. Tall branches overlapped above them, turning the forest into a tunnel of shadows. Tank pointed to the ground. Look, he whispered. Footprints. Large ones. Deep. Fresh. Bear nodded, eyes narrowing. He's moving fast. Then another biker, Crow, the quietest of them all, looked further ahead and froze. Drag marks, he murmured. Thick, long lines across the dirt. Eli clamped a hand over his own mouth to keep from making a sound. Bear placed a hand on his back. You're all right, kid. But Eli shook his head. He pulled her like that. He whispered, voice cracking. He pulled her so hard she screamed. Bear's jaw locked. They continued deeper. The woods grew darker, colder, quieter, until the only sound was Eli's shaky breathing. Suddenly, Tank raised a fist. Everyone halted. What? Bear whispered. Tank pointed at a cluster of bushes. A torn piece of pink fabric hung off a branch, fluttering softly in the breeze. Eli gasped. That's her shirt, he breathed. She was wearing pink today. Bear touched the cloth gently. It was warm, freshly torn. They were close. Too close. Crow tilted his head. You hear that? Everyone stopped breathing. At first, it sounded like wind. Then it sharpened into something else. Whimpering. Soft. Broken. Muffled by dirt and leaves. Eli's heart lurched. Mama, he whispered. Bear looked at his men and signaled silently. Surround. Stay low. Move quiet. The bikers spread out like wolves. Not roaring engines now. Just silent boots. Slow breathing. And rage simmering beneath calm eyes. Bear motioned for Eli to stay behind a tree. I'll bring her to you, he whispered. The boy nodded and pressed himself into the bark, tears spilling silently. The bikers stalked forward, weaving through the trees until they saw a clearing, a rotting shed, windows covered with plywood, door barely hanging on rusty hinges. And inside, a man's voice, low, breathing hard. Get up, he snarled. A soft cry answered him. Bear's blood burned. He signaled his men again. Positions. Now. Crow slipped behind the shed. Tank went right. Jasper took the left. Reaper climbed a low branch for a vantage point. Bear walked straight toward the door. He pushed it open with one hand. The hinges screamed. But nothing was louder than the scene inside. There she was. Eli's mother. On the floor. Hands tied. Face bruised. Lip bleeding. Clothes torn where she'd fought back. The man turned sharply. Eyes wild. Knife still in his grip. And then he saw Bear. But instead of fear, he smirked. Oh look, he sneered. More heroes. Bear stepped inside, expression unreadable. You took the wrong woman. The man laughed. You gonna stop me with your leather club, Grandpa? Bear smiled slowly. No, he said, voice dropping low. My brothers are. The man turned, just in time to see Tank appear in the doorway. Then Crow behind him. Then Jasper from the side. Then Reaper from above, dropping from the branch with a thud that shook the whole shed. The man's smirk collapsed. He tightened his grip on the knife. This is my shed, he growled. My woods. You think you scare me? Bear tilted his head. You don't know fear, he said softly. But you're about to learn it. The man lunged. Bear caught his wrist midair. The knife never reached him. It fell to the dirt with a dull thud. The kidnapper froze, shocked at the strength in that one hand. Then Tank grabbed him by the collar. Crow twisted his arm behind his back. Reaper kicked his legs out from under him. The man hit the ground so hard the shed shuddered. He screamed. Jasper leaned down calmly. That's for running your mouth. Bear knelt beside Eli's mother, using a small knife to cut through her bindings. You're safe now, he whispered. Her eyes filled. How did you find me? Before Bear could answer, a tiny voice came from the doorway. Mama, she gasped. Eli. He ran into her arms, sobbing into her chest. She held him so tightly she shook. Baby, I'm here, she cried. I'm right here. Bear looked away to give them those sacred seconds. Reaper pressed a boot into the kidnapper's back. You're lucky the kid's watching, he muttered. Otherwise we'd end this a whole different way. Bear pulled out his phone. Call the sheriff, he ordered. Tank nodded and stepped outside to get signal. Crow bound the kidnapper's wrists even tighter. Jasper kicked the man's knife further away. Then they all paused, because Eli's mother tugged Bear's sleeve. You saved us, she whispered. Bear shook his head. No, ma'am. Your boy did. She looked at Eli, crying quietly in her arms. He's the bravest kid I've ever met, Bear said softly. Then he leaned closer to Eli. You did everything right, little man. Everything. Eli sniffed. Did he hurt her bad? Bear glanced at the bruises. Her trembling. Her torn clothes. And he felt something burn behind his ribs. But he didn't let Eli see it. She's safe now, he said. The boy nodded slowly. But something heavier sat in his eyes. An unspoken truth. Something Bear sensed instantly. Eli, he whispered. What else aren't you telling me? Eli looked at the ground. Then at his mother. Then back toward the woods. Far deeper than the shed. And he whispered something that made every biker go rigid. He's not the only one out here. For a moment, the world stopped moving. Eli's whisper hung in the air like a blade. He's not the only one out here. Bear's breath caught. Tank, Crow, Jasper, and Reaper all straightened at once. Every muscle long trained to snap into alert mode. Bear crouched in front of Eli again, voice low. Kid, what do you mean not the only one? Eli swallowed, eyes darting toward the deeper stretch of forest. A part even the bikers had avoided. I saw another man, he whispered. He had a flashlight. And I heard. His voice broke. I heard someone crying. Not my mom. A different girl. Eli's mom covered her mouth, shaking. Bear stood slowly. And when he turned to his men, the look in his eyes was unmistakable. Whatever was in this forest was bigger than one man. Tank stepped forward, fists already tightening. There's more kids out here. Crow's voice dropped to a whisper. Or women. Reaper cracked his knuckles. Then we keep moving. But Bear lifted a hand. No. Not with a child and a victim to protect. He looked at Eli's mother. Can you walk? She nodded weakly. I think so. He turned to Eli. You stay with me. Understand. Eli nodded quickly, clinging to his mother's arm. Then Bear signaled Jasper. You and Crow get them out to the main road. Meet the sheriff. Keep him safe. Jasper nodded. Crow placed a gentle hand on Eli's shoulder. We got you, little man. But Eli shook his head. No, don't leave her. He grabbed Bear's vest again, eyes pleading. You said you'd bring my mama home. Don't split up. Bear knelt, hands on the boy's arms. Eli, listen. His voice softened in a way only Haley's mother earlier had ever heard. I swear I won't leave your mama. But you and her need to be where it's safe. If worse men are hiding deeper in these woods, I can't protect everyone at once. Eli trembled. But what if they come back? They won't, Bear said gently. Not with my men waiting outside. Finally, slowly, Eli nodded. Bear watched as Crow and Jasper guided the boy and his mother down the trail, staying close, keeping them shielded. Now only 3 bikers remained. Bear, Tank, and Reaper. Bear turned toward the black stretch of forest ahead, a part untouched by sunlight, thick with branches, dense with danger. He took one quiet breath. Let's finish this. The 3 of them moved deeper into the woods. In formation, silent. Shadows slipping through shadows. Moments later, they heard it. A faint sob. Then another. Tank whispered. Kids. They followed the sound until a shape emerged. A larger shed, hidden behind brush, reinforced with metal panels, locked with chains and rusted bolts. Inside, voices. Crying. Whimpering. A girl whispering. Please, someone please. Reaper swore under his breath. They were running a whole operation out here. Bear's hands curled into fists. He didn't wait. He charged the door. Tank grabbed the chained lock, braced his boots, and ripped it loose with a roar. Reaper kicked the door inward, and the smell of sweat, dirt, and fear hit them like a wave. Inside, 2 girls, maybe 13 and 14, pale, terrified, eyes swollen from crying. When they saw Bear, they recoiled, until they saw the patch on his vest. Hell's Angels. Brotherhood, honor, justice. The older girl whispered. You're not with them, are you? Bear knelt slowly. No, sweetheart, he whispered. We're here to take you home. Tank stepped inside, gathering blankets and water from the kidnapper's stash. Reaper covered the girls with his own jacket, voice gentler than anyone expected. You're safe now. No one's hurting you again. Tears flowed down their faces as they clung to each other. But Bear noticed something else. Chains hanging from the wall. 3 sets, meaning one was empty. One belonged to the girl they found earlier. The last? Where's the 3rd girl? Bear whispered. The older girl pointed deeper into the woods. They moved her this morning. Bear's blood ran cold. To where? We don't know, she sobbed. But we heard them say something about the cabin. Reaper cursed under his breath. Tank asked, how far? An hour, maybe more. We heard their steps fade for a long time. Bear stood, shoulders squared, jaw set. We're not leaving anyone behind. He turned to Tank and Reaper. You take these girls to the sheriff. Tell them this is bigger than a kidnapping. Tell them to call state police, FBI, anyone. Tank nodded. And you? He asked. Bear grabbed his vest, tightening it. I'm finding the third girl. Reaper stepped forward. You're not going alone. But Bear shook his head. You need to get these girls out. Every second counts. If she's alive, she's running out of time. Go. I'll move faster solo. Tank clenched his fists, conflicted. But he nodded. Bear leaned down to the older girl. Tell the sheriff where the shed is. Tell them there's a cabin deeper in the woods. She nodded through her tears. Tank and Reaper escorted the girls back the way they came. Bear watched until their shapes disappeared into the trees. Then he turned toward the dark trail ahead. He listened. The forest answered with silence. He took one breath. Then he ran, deeper and deeper, through branches that clawed his clothes, through darkness thick as smoke, until something new drifted through the air. A scream, high-pitched, terrified. A girl's scream. Bear sprinted faster. He wouldn't fail this one. Not today. Not ever. And somewhere in the distance, a cabin waited. And inside it, something far more monstrous than the men they'd already taken down. This wasn't over. Not even close. The scream cut through the forest like a blade. Bear didn't hesitate. He sprinted so hard his boots barely touched the ground. Branches whipping against his arms, breath burning in his lungs, heart pounding like a war drum. Somewhere ahead, a girl was fighting for her life. And Bear ran like a man who had sworn to protect every child the world tried to break. The trees thinned. The shadows parted. And then he saw it. A cabin, half collapsed, hidden beneath dead vines, sitting in a patch of cold, sinking fog. Its windows covered with boards. Its chimney coughing thin smoke. The kind of place evil chooses when it doesn't want to be found. Bear slowed. He listened. A muffled cry. A thud. A man's angry voice. He moved closer, slower now, every step silent. He peered through a crack in the boards. Inside, a teenage girl, wrists bound, cheeks tear-streaked, sitting on the wooden floor against an upturned table. And hovering over her, a man twice Bear's size, veins bulging, fists clenched, pacing like a predator deciding its next move. You shut up, he growled. You scream again, and he didn't finish. Because Bear kicked the door open so hard the hinges nearly ripped from the wood. The man spun around. The hell are you? Bear didn't let him finish that either. He stormed inside with the force of a hurricane. Step away from her, he growled, voice a low, lethal rumble. The man smirked, knife glinting. Another tough guy? Think you can take me? Bear stared at him like he was looking at a dead man who hadn't realized it yet. You laid hands on a kid, Bear said. That means I don't need to take you. He cracked his knuckles. I just need to end you. The man lunged. Bear sidestepped, grabbed his wrist, slammed it into the wall. Crack. The knife fell. The man howled. Bear didn't give him a chance to recover. One punch to the gut, one to the jaw, one to the ribs. The man collapsed, choking on breath and blood. You don't understand, he wheezed. This girl, she's worth. Bear kicked him across the floor. She's worth more than your life. The girl whimpered in the corner. Bear dropped to one knee instantly. He softened, voice melting into gentleness. Sweetheart. Hey, look at me, he whispered. You're safe now. I'm getting you out. She nodded, trembling so violently he worried she'd collapse. He cut her bindings with a pocket knife, then draped his jacket around her shoulders. Her voice cracked like ice. How did you find me? Bear smiled softly. Someone brave asked us to help. Who? She whispered. A little boy, Bear said. Name's Eli. Tears welled in her eyes. Not from fear this time, but from a single word. Hope. Bear lifted her carefully. We're going home. She curled into him, clinging to his vest. Behind them, the man groaned on the floor. What are you going to do with me? He spat, voice slurred. Bear didn't look back. You're going to jail, he said. And you're lucky the girl's watching. Otherwise, his voice dropped into the darkness. You wouldn't be breathing. He carried the girl outside. The forest air hit her face, and she sobbed softly into his shoulder. It's okay, Bear murmured. I've got you. Just hold on. He walked until the cabin disappeared behind the trees, until sunlight finally broke through the branches, until familiar voices echoed ahead. Tank, Crow, Jasper, Reaper, and behind them, Eli and his mother. When the boy saw the girl in Bear's arms, he gasped. You found her, Eli shouted, running forward. The girl looked up at him, eyes wide. You're Eli, she whispered. He nodded proudly. I told them about you. Bear set her gently on her feet. Eli's mother hugged the girl tightly. It's okay, sweetheart. You're safe now. The sheriff arrived minutes later. Sirens, backup, paramedics, everything the bikers expected, and more help than they needed. Deputies hauled the kidnapper out of the cabin screaming. State Patrol dragged the other one away in tears. The sheriff turned to Bear. You and your men. You didn't have to do all this. Bear looked at Eli, then at Eli's mother, then at the rescued girl. Yes, he said softly. We did. Eli ran to Bear and wrapped his small arms around his waist. Thank you, the boy whispered. For saving her. For saving my mama. For coming when I called. Bear ruffled his hair gently. You called the right people, kid. Eli sniffled. Will I ever see you again? Bear knelt, placing a heavy, warm hand on the boy's shoulder. You ever need us, he said. You shout. Eli smiled through his tears. His mother cried openly. The bikers mounted their bikes again. But this time, all engines stayed quiet. Bear started his bike last, helmet in hand. He looked back at the family he'd helped save. We're not the monsters people think we are, he said softly. We just hunt them. Then the engines roared. Not as noise, but as justice. The ground trembled. The forest shook. And 6 Hell's Angels rode away, leaving behind safety, light, and a story a small boy would never forget. If this story touched your heart, share it. Because kindness doesn't always wear a smile, and heroes don't always wear uniforms. Sometimes, they walk in covered in dust, carrying stories that could change your heart forever.